The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah!
Go Cowboys!
Let's go, baby!
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com.
We were on the break!
With Ambar Garcia, Brian Broaddus, Patrick Walker, and Derek Eagleton.
It is Monday, November 6th, 2023, season 19, episode number 64. Welcome to the latest edition of The Break. We're live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star, and today we have to dissect Cowboys' loss. They lose to the Eagles 28-23 on the road. They'll get a chance to see this team again. That was the common thought coming out of the locker room. But yesterday, it was a loss for them, a close game. We'll break it down. We'll tell you what went right and what went wrong for the Cowboys in that game. Let's start where we normally start on a Monday. Let's go around the table. I want to hear your storylines. What is the biggest, most enduring storyline for you that comes out of this game? We'll start with you, Patrick.
You got to figure out that offensive line. Tyron Smith, he did return to the game, and for the most part, he played fairly well. But Dak Prescott was just lights out regardless of the pressure that he was under, and he was under quite a bit of pressure. I think 30% quarterback pressure from the Philadelphia Eagles, 5 sacks, and Dak was still out there dealing almost 400 yards. And then when you factor in the 14 rushing yards, he accounted for 96% of the Cowboys' 406 offensive yards of production. So Dak, your quarterback, he's ready. He's ready to get this team to where they need to get. CeeDee Lamb, 191 yards, just unbelievable football. But at the end of the day, it still came down to the same pressures that were affecting the Cowboys on the first offensive drive where they had that quick 3-and-out. Talk about the Josh Sweat sack for an 11-yard loss on Dak Prescott. Terrence Steele got beat pretty handily on that one. And for those that are saying, we were talking about this before we went hot, for those that are saying, well, Dak can't take that sack, that happened so quickly that the only way you throw that ball away is if you're ready to get that intentional grounding flag that comes from that. So Steele's not had his best season over the past couple of games, which is kind of strange because he was one of the bright spots in the absence of that when they were having those OL injuries over the course of the first few games of the season. But yeah, his play has kind of trended downward. He's got to get back to where he needs to get. So for me, there's a lot of different things, and we'll hit as the show goes on. But, kudos to Dak Prescott for getting it, or, doing his best to get the job done. CeeDee Lamb doing his best to get the job done. Defense had a slow start, clamped down in the fourth quarter when it mattered most. But, credit to the Eagles. They got it done. Ball bounced their way, didn't bounce the Cowboys' way. Game of inches. Cowboys didn't win it.
Brian?
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
I actually thought that Tyron Smith played one of the best games he's played in years. I really do. And it was the total opposite of what Terrence Steele went through in that game yesterday. And when you start, if they can get the level of Tyron Smith play the rest of the season like that, if they can keep him healthy, they'll be fine over there. They do have some issues at center, and they do have some issues at right tackle. Mm-hmm. And there was a couple of times there where big plays could have been made if the center had gotten his block or the right tackle had gotten his block. I noticed on film only one time where they tried to help Steele, and it was late in the game, and they brought Pollard across the formation to try and kind of set things up to help him. So they made the commitment that we were going to let Steele go. Brandon Graham, to me, is one of these guys that doesn't play the whole game, and then all of a sudden he comes in and kills you 2 straight plays, and his ability to gain pressures and things like that. That's what you got to have when you're trying to win these games. You're going to have to try and have somebody that hasn't done anything really all day, and all of a sudden they show up. And to me, those are the differences of the game. When you have the opportunity, you get down, you drive the ball, you get down there with the final opportunity. Unfortunately, though, a couple of the reads that the quarterback missed were in the latter part of the game. And he had played brilliantly. And I'm not taking it away from him, but when you put the whole thing on him because you have no running game, the margin of error is zero for this team in that way. And they can't afford the penalties. They can't overcome things. They can't overcome sacks. That's the problem. But the quarterback played great. I'm sure there's two plays that he's going to watch on tape. He absolutely, and I say this about, again, I mentioned Brandon Graham. He's the reason why Prescott doesn't get in on the 2-point play because of how hard it reminded me very much of Jeff Heath that time when the Cowboys beat the Raiders. And he tries to get to the pylon and Jeff Heath forced him out of bounds, and then you got the fumble and all that. So, tip the cap to the Eagles for the way that they played. When they had to make some plays, they got it with their front. It wasn't anything to do with their secondary. It was all about their front, and their quarterback was wounded. They started running the ball in the second half or trying to run the ball. It kind of played into Dallas's hands a little bit better. But, man, when you just needed some plays down at the end there, you just couldn't find a way to get it done. And I think that was really the difference of the game. Two very evenly matched teams, just that Philadelphia came up with one or two more plays than you had yesterday.
All right, my venting session. Let me preface this by saying when emotions are high, rationale is low. So don't be asking me to be rational today because it ain't happening.
Whatever it is going to be better than where you were last night. So I think we're okay.
It's a little better.
It's better than where you were last night.
I got to listen to music on my drive here. Music always helps. But no, it freaking sucks. It really does because, and me personally, I spent all week backing them up, finding that rationale, and really believing. Every part of my body believed on a win this last weekend. Didn't happen. And it's always like, oh, so close. They should have won that game. I'm freaking tired. Sorry. I'm tired of saying they should have won that game because it happens so often where we come out of a loss and we're like, well, they should have won because this and this and this and that. Regardless of how everything happened prior to those last couple of minutes of the game, and we were there watching it. Forget everything that happened then. When it got to those, the Cowboys still had two more chances to get into the end zone, and it did not happen. I thought, regardless of everything, Dak did play a very tough game right off the bat. You could see him, even when he was running out of the pocket, I thought he did a really nice job. I don't think the play calling was really good. Had a lot of things that kind of bothered me on some of the play calling that Mike McCarthy was doing. And another thing, the officiating. I'm so tired of it.
Let's cook.
I'm so tired of it.
Let's cook.
I don't know what needs to happen. How do you rebel against this? I don't know what kind of protest we need to make it happen. I don't know if we need to get fans to start signing petition. I don't know how many signatures are valid to make something happen because I am so sick and tired of it. It's frustrating because obviously you see the outcome and how much it can affect the result of the game. And this is not to say I'm vouching just for the Cowboys. It happens both ways.
Sure does.
Where you're just watching it and it's just like, what the heck? Like, and it just, there has to be a better way when so much is at stake. We know how much everybody cares about football games. We know how little, like there's only 17 of these that happen in a season. So it's just that whole aspect of things. It's so freaking frustrating. And I can't believe that we go year after year and we just always kind of mention it, complain about it. And I don't know, again, I don't know what needs to happen to make it better. But at some point, something needs to happen.
Yeah, the crazy part about it is I've stopped complaining about that because, as you just said, nothing's going to change about it. And by the way, and one thing I also think is true, you mentioned it, it happens on both sides. Like you can come out of every game and both teams typically, every once in a while it's lopsided, but typically both teams are like, that was a wonky call right there. Like that call could have affected the game and it was a bad call. So I think part of it is you got humans being referees, which means if they're human, they're going to be imperfect. That's the nature of it. But also it happens on both sides. So at some point you just like, it is what it is. And that's the part you got to overcome. You have to overcome whatever the bad call is. And unless it's just some egregious call, I usually am just like, hey man, that's how it goes with officiating.
But see, that's the problem I have with it. and for me, I want to be clear in that if you have watched the show daily over the past several weeks, this isn't the first time we've been frustrated with the officiating, but this is the first time that I'm about to cook when it comes to the officiating. That's not the only reason that the Cowboys walked away with a loss in Philadelphia yesterday. It's just not. Cowboys had self-inflicted wounds as well. Perfect example, Rashaan Evans with the 15-yard penalty on a drive that ends up being a touchdown for the Philadelphia.
By the way,
ball was already in the end zone,
Right.
and guys were peeling back to go to the sidelines as he's ripping the guy's helmet off his head.
Right.
So this is a kicker that normally kicks it out of the end zone. Why are you? That's a stupid penalty
Exactly
to make.
my point. So self-inflicted wounds that happen. With the possible game-winning drive, you get down there. The Eagles help you out with penalty. Now it's 1st and goal from the 6. What do? False start. And then still gets beat by Josh Sweat, 11-yard loss. Now it's 3rd and long. Oh, this situation is dire. So that is all true. Cowboys suffered self-inflicted wounds. Read or two that Dak would like back in an otherwise masterpiece theater of a game for him. That factors in as well. But then when you start talking about, for me, it's like the habitual offenders that weren't flagged as often as they should have been. James Bradbury was just out there more or less doing what he wanted to do. Example, early in the game, clear hold on CeeDee Lamb coming out of that break. No flag. Later in the game, obvious hands to the face on Michael Gallup. And the admission, the physical admission, when he did it, flag went, he threw his hands up like this. That's how you know it was guilty. On that play, it was a sack by Jalen Carter. The flag got picked up with no explanation.
Mm-hmm.
Oops, my bad. Let me get this back.
That is quite literally like you catching me in the middle of a felony. You have me in cuffs, and then right before you put me in the squad car, you say, you know what? Never mind. Never mind. Okay, for me, if I'm James Bradbury, if I'm the criminal, okay, cool. But if I'm the person that you just violated, if I'm the victim of the crime, Michael Gallup is looking around like, what the hell is going on? Mike McCarthy's like, what the hell is going on? So my problem is what you just said. At a certain point, there's nothing you can do about it. It's just part of the game. Unfortunately, until a better solution comes along or until they figure it out, it's no point in complaining about it. But when it comes down to the egregious ones and the thrown flag on an obvious infraction, but it's picked up, and Jalen Tolbert getting hit in the back before the ball gets there, Schoonmaker getting tackled, but people were saying, well, Schoon didn't run that deep enough. He didn't get enough depth. He got just enough depth, but he was wrapped up before the ball arrived, which is what drove his left knee down to be short. It's things like that that impact the game as well. These are two evenly matched teams, like Brian said. These are the teams, the best in the NFC East, and it's still going to come down to these two teams. And I said I thought the Cowboys were going to split with this. I thought they'd land the first blow. Philly would probably come into AT&T, get the rematch. However, now I think it's going to go the other way. Bottom line, though, is let the players decide what happens and not the officiating. The officiating crew cannot be the headline of an NFL game, not just this game. Any game.
Yeah, that's all fine. That's great. But at the end of the day, none of us, nobody in that locker room, nobody can affect any of that and change any of that. It is something that, as long as I've watched football, there have been these discussions about the way the game's called. By the way, it's not just the NFL. It happens in the NBA. It happens in every sport. That's just the nature of it. Imperfect people are imperfect, which means that there's going to be bad calls. What I can say is, when I look at this game, Cowboys had opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely.
And despite all the calls, they had opportunities, and they did not convert the opportunities. They didn't make enough of the plays. Amber, you and I were watching there at the end of the game, and we're watching them move down the field, and we're like, this is going to be Dak's moment. Like, this is that moment we've been waiting for, where Dak shows you, I'm going to put this team on my back, and we're going to take it down there, and we're going to win this ball game on the road. We're going to steal this one, because really, the Eagles have really got to play them to that point where you're like, if they win this one, it's probably going to be a little bit of they stole this game. But he had them in position, and then they self-inflicted
offensive line.
Self-inflicted wounds. And after the game, I told Nick, he was talking about his story. I said, to me, it's very clear the story of this game. I'll give you 2 words: offensive line. At the moment you needed it most, your offensive line couldn't hold up, and their defensive line won. That was the game.
Then that's it, really. Okay. What is there to look forward to as far as improvement when it comes to the O-line this year, this season? Because
Philadelphia has the same questions about their secondary. there's nothing that they could potentially do to get any better.
Secondary
and the injuries,
but Steele can get better. Steele is coming off an injury last season where I think you got to expect it as. And by the way, I'm not going to be one that sits up here. He had a horrible game yesterday. Yeah. I'm not going to be one that sits here and writes him off at this point. I've done that before earlier in his career. This guy can play.
Well,
he had a bad day yesterday.
As I said,
he's coming off the injury. Spot. You let it kind of keep going. You hope that as the season wears on, he gets it back on track, and he'll be fine. This is not a bad player. This is a player that had a bad day, and that happens.
Fact.
He had a bad day yesterday. So I don't want to condemn the entire offensive line. The problem is they can't seem to get the continuity they need because every time they start playing together, somebody gets hurt. And I think that's the thing. That's more of the thing. Like that might be the issue of how do you get better is you can't really get better because at some point it always seems like one of them goes down with an injury.
Right. So we're saying the
you can't fix that. You can't fix that. You can't fix that.
But I'm with Derek on this one, and that's why I prefaced it the way I did when I talked about Steele. He's had the last 2 games not been great. Yesterday's game, absolutely, probably one of the worst he's put on film. But this is the same season where we were giving him praise going into the bye week where it was an offensive line that had a lot of shuffling because it had injuries, but who was holding it down the whole time during that stretch? It was Terrence Steele. So, yes, a couple bad days at the office, hang that on him. But for anyone saying, oh, we'll get him out of here, why? Why? Allow him to work through this. You allow any other player to work through a little bit of a slump. I know he's earned the right to be able to work through that. And then the opposite side of that, or not necessarily the opposite, but the other side of that question is for those that are saying, well, ditch your starting right tackle, who's proven to be a very capable starting right tackle, which is why he's still here going forward. Who are you going with? Who are you going with? Are you going into the middle of the season, the back end of the season, that you're trying to pull your starter at right tackle and put somebody else there when you don't know if your left tackle is going to be able to continue to play games and be available? Don't create new problems where you don't have to create new problems. Let the young man work through that. I'm confident that he will. But the offensive line, like you said, and like we all agree, when push came to absolute shove and you were first and goal from the 6-yard line, it was the offensive line that cost you that game. Yeah. And that's the bottom line, period. So officiating, that's true. But also in a game of inches, I mean, the Cowboys just got no breaks as far as the bounce of the ball.
Yeah, that's
3 fumbles, and they all went right back to Philadelphia. And when that third one happened and it went right back, I was just like, you know what, this is the kind of game it is. This is where it is. The Cowboys are probably not going to win this game because they're not getting a single one of those bounces. Sam Williams, he sacks, strip fumbles, and that ball falls right back into Jalen's hands.
Booker had the strip sack.
Yeah,
the strip fumble, Hooker had the fumble he created, and they get the ball back.
And it fell right back under him.
There were 3 times they fumbled the ball, and 3 times that the Eagles recovered their own fumbles. All right, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about that final series, and particularly, do you guys feel like there was some failure in coaching from all the mistakes that were made? How much do you put on coaching? We'll talk about that when we come back. DallasCowboys.com radio.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Cowboys fans, after that move, we've just coined the term Rowdy Replay. Let's roll back the tape.
Okay, there's our mascot Rowdy cheering on the boys. And now he's on his phone, on his Bank of America mobile banking app?
Staying on top of his finances with his virtual financial assistant, Erica.
Bank of America's digital tools are so impressive. Cowboys fans just can't stop banking. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/can't-stop-banking.
Erica is only available in the English language. You must download the latest version of the mobile banking app, only available on select mobile devices. Message and data rates may apply. Member FDIC.
Welcome back into Dear Doctor, the show where I answer life's questions with an ice-cold can of Dr. Pepper. Sheila, let's hear from our next caller, would you?
Dear Doctor, my friend supported me during a tough time, but what's the right gift that says, thanks for being a shoulder to cry on?
Okay, this one's easy. I say give her a delicious Dr. Pepper. Nothing says, thanks, girl, better than a one-of-a-kind soda. Yes, any Dr. Pepper flavor will do. Now, just a reminder that I don't need to be a real doctor to know that Dr. Pepper is the one you deserve.
They say champions are remembered, but legends are never forgotten. United Ag and Turf offers a winning lineup of John Deere equipment built to tackle any challenge on and off the field. Legendary John Deere tractors, combines, residential mowers, commercial mowers, compact construction equipment, Gator utility vehicles, and a full line of golf and sports turf equipment. United Ag and Turf, the official Ag and Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com to find a location near you.
Back to the break.
Tis the season for youth football and dance camps presented by Invisalign. Don't miss your chance to learn from Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders and former NFL players at AT&T Stadium on December 22nd and December 23rd. Celebrate the holidays with the Cowboys. Register today at dallascowboys.com/camps.
Welcome back. It is the second segment of The Break, live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. The segment brought to you by blockchain.com. All right, we're talking about the Cowboys lost 28-23 to the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's talk about that last series. You had, after the Cowboys get the penalties that get them down into the Eagles' side of the field, deep in their territory, you get a false start by Tyler Smith. You have the sack by Sweat. You have an incompletion to Tolbert. You have a delay of game on Jake Ferguson. And then you have the final play, the 23-yard pass to Lamb.
You could have used those 5 more yards.
You definitely could have used those 5 more yards. And let's not also forget that 2-point conversion. And Dak, I think Dak really, that's the one play of all the plays in the game. He had a phenomenal day.
Yeah.
That play is the one that's going to haunt him, because if he gets that 2-point conversion, that would have meant both those two. Now, it might have changed how Philly approached the last half of the fourth quarter. But the point is, they would have had opportunities to get down into field goal range and get a field goal. And you know how money your kicker has been. To get a field goal to get you into overtime. That, to me, you combine all of those things that happened really over from the time that Dak didn't get the 2-point conversion and then the next 2 series, there were just all these miscues. How much of that do you put on failure of coaching versus just lack of execution?
I think the lack of execution, I mean, the problem I had with the last series was all the routes were just vertical routes to the end zone. So you're not, the only one that had any real purpose or design to it was verticals, and then bring CeeDee across and try and hope that the coverage goes with everybody in the end zone and you catch the ball right in front, which I thought was a pretty good design. Right. But it looked like to me that there was a lot of uncertainty with the Cowboys receivers when it came to those final couple of plays with route running. I didn't see anything that led me to believe there was any type of, the pass he threw to Tolbert in the corner of the end zone that just went too far. If inside of that he's got Turpin he's turning at the goal line, so he just committed the throw into the corner. But Turpin's now, he's the one guy that's fast enough and maybe a little bit fresher than everybody else. So he's already to the end zone, as Dak's already made the decision to go to Tolbert. If he has a chance and maybe he sees Turpin inside, it's a throw and a catch. I'll say this on the sack, the 2-point play. I know you were talking about that one. And we're talking about offensive line, and Biotish got beat so bad by Carter. I mean, he's struggling. Literally, they're trying to run a scheme again, and they do this. They've done it a couple times. I did it on the 2-point play, and some other ones they've tried to do, is they put Cooks in the slot to one side and work him all the way across the field. But it's one of those plays, it takes a lot of time to get him from the right side to the left side to the corner. And all of a sudden, Dak's dealing with, he's dealing with Carter and Biotish and everything right in his face. And, I think that, to me, it's just, it was a heck of a play. It really was. I mean, the thing about it with Dak trying to pull the ball down and run, and Brandon Graham was chasing him, it just was, his intent was to try and throw that ball to Cooks. And the line, Biotish's block was just so bad that Dak, now he's trying to, change hands while he's running and to get the ball to the pylon, but he takes an extra step, and that extra step carries him out of bounds. So, I mean, hell, it's people trying to make plays, but the whole execution of having to block the front and handle, Carter there kills the opportunity. It makes it now a jailbreak play, and then you don't pull it off.
Is Biadasz healthy?
They say he is.
I mean, I look
He's
at
not
him.
playing like he is.
I look at him, and I just don't
Is
think.
anyone really healthy?
Well, but I'm just saying, I don't see Biadasz. To me, last
no.
season, as I watched Biadasz, I felt like he was starting to gain that power, and those things that you didn't think he had earlier in his career. I thought he showed a lot of that last year. And this year, they're just those moments when he's not. That sack with Cox, that Cox got, I think that was on Biadasz. Yeah. And I just think, I don't know, he's not, he doesn't seem like he's playing at the level that he was last year.
He might be on a bad wheel. I was looking at this morning and started diving into film, and I'm looking at it again. And to answer your initial question, I don't really have an issue with the play calling in that sequence as far as the Cowboys' potential game.
Let's be clear. I wasn't necessarily pointing to play calling. It was more just overall. Were they drilled properly to know in that situation how to efficiently do it well instead of making the mistakes that they made?
For me, and I agree with Brian, it kind of goes back to what were the issues with the Cowboys in the red zone and trying to get this offense going over most of the first half of the season. It was lack of execution. And it kind of showed itself here. And again, this is a masterclass game by Dak Prescott, but it wasn't a perfect game. There's a read here on that particular play to Tolbert. This is, if I'm not mistaken, it's the one time where Dak had predetermined where he wanted to throw that ball. It was the one time that I had seen in real time that I was like, okay, he wanted to throw that ball to Tolbert deep left before he saw how the play unfolded. If he had not predetermined that, he might have had Turpin, but the better play was Jake Ferguson was right there in the middle of the field streaming. You hit Ferguson, and right now, looking at the still, the middle linebacker is 10 yards off of Jake Ferguson. If Dak in stride drops back 3 steps, hits Jake sits down at about the 10-yard line. Now you're looking at only 10 yards to go for third down, right? Or Jake, who's been getting some good yak, maybe he rumbles down to the 5 because the only person that's going to touch him before he gets down to the 5 is going to be that middle linebacker.
And he can break tackles.
And he can. So maybe you're inside the 5. So it's execution for me more than anything. And on this same play, circling all the way back to Tyler Biadasz and the possible bad wheel, Tyler Biadasz is on his backside. He's on his back. So if you go back and you look at this play from snap, Tyler gets engaged and he's on his back. He's pancaked. So now I think Dak, who already had predetermined he was going to Tolbert, now he feels that his center is on the ground. So he assumes that the pressure might end up coming out of the pocket. He's like, okay, maybe I don't have time to go through my reads. I'm going to go with where I'm going to go. So circling back to the original point, your offensive line has to do a better job of holding up because your quarterback, although he's not looking at that, he's looking down the field. He feels all of this. So when he feels Biadasz go down, maybe he's like, I no longer have time for the secondary and third read. But if he does, if Tyler Biadasz stays up, maybe he's more confident and he says, I'm off that Tolbert read because the coverage doesn't look good over there. And then 1, 2, and Jake is standing right there in the face, 10, 15, maybe a 17-yard game.
I'll say this, though. If you want to ask the coaches a question is, as much pick rubs that they run in some situations, it's been poorly executed, but what are the coaching points for that? What are you telling about depth? I mean, the one that the Schoonmaker one that he was short, Dak doesn't even look to the right side. It's executed well on the right side. You get Lamb and Cooks, that thing's clean. And actually Dak took the harder of the 2 throws. If he steps back and fires the ball at Cooks, it's an automatic. Yeah. It's right there. But he took the harder of the 2 throws, and because probably in practice they worked on it where Ferguson picked Schoonmaker's guy. The first touchdown they threw to Ferguson was a pick. It was the very first play they ran on to 2-point when we were in Oxnard, where they brought Cooks inside and he screens and Ferguson goes to flat. Very first play that they ran. When they did that goal line period that time in Oxnard. That they're capable of doing things like that, but I wonder, okay, what's the coaching point on these rubs? The ball that was dropped by Gallup. Mm-hmm. Gallup looks like he is picking for Ferguson. But what are they playing? They're playing zone. They're not playing man. Give the Eagles a little credit right there. They had a guy waiting for the crosser, and really Gallup's like he's open, but he's like not really expecting the ball. Still has to make the play. Yeah. Still has to make the play. But he, to me, looked like he was the pick for Ferguson, and the mesh point was bad there. There were several snaps yesterday where they were trying to run those mesh pick routes, get guys free. Officials weren't calling it, and they couldn't coordinate to running guys into each other.
Yeah.
So is that coaching? Is that teaching? Is that, depth?
That's the kind of thing,
that's the thing you worry about. But a lot of times we always hear that Veteran Day on Wednesday, Veteran Day on Thursday, maybe guys don't get to practice all this, and then they go out there and play, and we wonder why.
Yeah.
I tell you what, and it's beginning to prove itself true more and more as the season rolls along, especially with CeeDee Lamb just being on an absolute heater. These opposing defenses, they don't have an answer for Lamb, nor do they have an answer for Jake Ferguson.
I want to see Ferguson be so much more involved in the offense.
Now, credit to Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy. They definitely got him more involved in this particular game. Yeah. We've been begging to see it, and they got it to him. 10 targets, 7 touches, 91 yards, and a touchdown. But this could have easily been a 125-yard, 2-touchdown game for Jake Ferguson. So for me, continue that trend of feeding Lamb and feeding Ferguson, and let the rest of the wide receiver core kind of, organically figure some things out, be it Cooks, Tolbert, Gallup, because you got to have that drop back from Gallup. Like, you got to catch that ball, particularly in that situation. Kudos to him for having some hard-fought catches later in the game as well. 2 very physical, handsy catches. That's what you expect.
And one of those calls.
Exactly. That's what you expect to see.
He created that call.
He absolutely.
But Jake Ferguson needs to be your second read.
Yeah, the thing about it is too with these routes and stuff like that, you got to punish bad secondaries. Mm-hmm. That was a bad secondary yesterday. They were getting banged up. They're playing safeties at nickel. They got Eli Ricks playing. He can't cover me. There's a lot of things going on out there. And that's the problem I have at times. When you see, and maybe that's why Dallas sometimes, we all knew going in the game they weren't going to be able to really try and run the football. But now you understand why teams don't run the ball against the Eagles, because their secondary is so bad.
Yep.
But the punishment you get is if you don't block their front, you get negative plays.
Yep.
And that's the great deodorant for them. Their defensive front is the deodorant for how bad their secondary stinks.
Yep.
The Eagles secondary is just lunch. It is lunch, and that's why I cannot wait for this rematch because it's coming home now. Yeah, you've shown that you can't stop. Yeah. Dak Prescott. So
I'm looking at some of the play-by-play, and what still doesn't make any sense to me. You talk about making conscious effort of involving certain people, and looking at Brandon Cooks, and we've been talking about him all season, feels like, but more often than not, he finds a way to create separation, and he's available.
He's your best route.
But it's not like a conscious effort to target him. Like, it doesn't seem like they come up with plays that are designed for Brandon Cooks.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. The 2-point plays and some of the plays they were running down on the goal line, they're trying to get him to start on one side and then go through all the trash to get to the corner. But the problem is you have breakdowns with the offensive line. So here they are, play action, Dak spins, and the next thing you know, he feels pressure. Now he has to move, and then he takes off running and gets helicoptered. That was a play. They were trying to get the ball to Cooks on one of those plays, but pressure again. So Dak does what he has to do. Yeah. Take off running. He gets spun up in the air, and I think they've tried to create opportunities for Cooks. I think they've had, every time it seems like it's a breakdown of what's going on with the offensive line, or Dak, like I said, on the play to Schoonmaker, he never looked. Cooks is walking that thing home.
Yeah.
You look at the play, CeeDee did his job, Cooks did his job. Dak never took a look to the right, made the harder throw over to Schoonmaker, and the tight ends over there kind of messed that up with their pick. They didn't make Blankenship trying to run the hump. He just went down through there. And, if you're going to do that stuff, you got to execute down there, especially in that tight area.
Yep. All right, let's take our final break. When we come back, we got to spend a little time on the defense. I'll have a question for you guys about looking at this Eagles offense and the production that they had and what you thought when you just look at the numbers about how well this defense played. We'll talk about it when we come back. DallasCowboys.com radio.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Don't put off getting your oil change, Dallas. Take 5 Oil Change, a proud partner of the Cowboys, is faster than you think. There's no appointment needed and no waiting room. Yep, you heard that correctly. Take 5 is so fast, you don't even have to get out of your car. You can take advantage of Take 5's fast, friendly, and simple service at any of their locations across the Dallas area. And remember, at Take 5, you stay in your car because they're faster than you think. Take 5, the official oil change of the Dallas Cowboys.
It's the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black. And right now, Cowboys fans can get 15% off their $75 order. Plus, because every deal needs a playmaker, your order will include a free 5-piece skincare set and free shipping. The Jack Black Playmaker is 4 of Jack's favorites and a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Make a play for the Playmaker at getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP.
They say champions are remembered, but legends are never forgotten. United Ag and Turf offers a winning lineup of John Deere equipment built to tackle any challenge on and off the field. Legendary John Deere tractors, combines, residential mowers, commercial mowers, compact construction equipment, Gator utility vehicles, and a full line of golf and sports turf equipment. United Ag and Turf, the official Ag and Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com to find a location near you.
Back to the break.
Yeah, you have to get him early.
Get a frame-worthy family holiday photo with Santa at the Star, presented by Monument Realty. Santa Claus will be at his Cowboys-themed cottage in the Star District from November 18th through December 24th. Book your visit before December 9th and save $5 with code STAR5. Visit thestardistrict.com/Santa for more info.
Welcome back. Final segment of the break, live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read some numbers for you guys, some stats from the Eagles offense, and I want you to tell me, if I would have presented these stats to you on Friday, what would you have thought about how this game turned out without telling you how it turned out? So, Eagles offense, 207 passing yards, 109 rush yards. A.J. Brown held to 7 catches for 66 yards and a touch. Devontae Smith, 3 catches, 51 yards and a touch. DeAndre Swift, 18 carries for 43 yards. That's a 2.4 average. Hurts, only 17 of 23 for 207 yards, 2 touchdowns. And he didn't kill you with his legs, 10 rushes for 36 yards and a touchdown. What would you have thought if I'd given you those numbers on Friday and said, who do you think won this game?
Well, before I made my prediction of 30-17, I based that prediction on those numbers being, or that kind of production happening. It's a 30-17 game for me if you show me those numbers in favor of the Cowboys. I said A.J. Brown was going to get a playoff. Okay, he got his touchdown. And I can't give enough credit to Jalen Hurts for that throw down the left sideline to Devontae Smith. That was indefensible. I mean, Bland was right there. I mean, you can't defend that. That was a dot. So Devontae Smith, he made the play there. But, I mean, if you walk into this game and you're telling me that you're holding Jalen Hurts to roughly 200 yards passing, that means A.J. Brown didn't get off. That means Devontae Smith didn't get off. That means Dallas Goedert didn't get off. Gainwell, Swift, they both struggled to get the ball off. Gainwell later in the game, but that's a win for the Cowboys. I mean, go down the line, the yardage and production offensively versus offensively. Eagles just they got the big plays when they needed them, but the Dallas defense. Look at what A.J. Brown. Bottom line is, look at what A.J. Brown was doing before he faced this Cowboys defense, and look at what he did against the Cowboys defense. Virtually nothing outside of that touchdown. So, yeah, I want more of that. More of that, please.
Yeah, for me, I would have said, okay, seems like a manageable game. Like, I know my people. I know my Cowboys. I know them. I know that they keep you on your toes, and that would have sounded like, looking at those stats, yeah, they can manage. They should, because we've seen that before. We saw it 49ers playoffs. They should have. they should have won that game with what the defense was doing for you, and they didn't. So it's just one of those. I think it really was a good game. Like, as far
difference is your offense showed up for this one.
Yeah. But I'm talking about this in general. Like, I thought the competition was there. Taking emotions aside, it was a good football game with both teams just kind of showing up and doing what they needed to do, except for those penalties, execution, or whatever. But I thought the Cowboys defense did a pretty decent job against this offense.
It reminded me when we used to be in Green Bay and we'd play Dallas, and they'd have Aikman, and they'd have Emmitt Smith, and they'd have Jay Novacek, and then they have Michael Irvin, and they'd have, there was always, they didn't all need to make plays at the same time, but every time one of them would make a play. And that's what you got yesterday. The Gainwell touchdown, Brown's touchdowns. You start to talk about the way that they schemed Goddard open for 29 yards until he broke his forearm. Their passing game went down a little bit after Goddard went out of there.
That's going to be something to keep an eye on over the next several weeks.
Yeah. So to me, the numbers tell a story, but the numbers don't tell the complete story, is that you still allowed big plays. And this team is going to lose games if they continue to allow chunk plays. That's the they were going to take a shot in this game. They've taken a shot on every team in the league that they've played so far with the vertical passing game. It was a great throw. It was you get a good jam on one side of the field to kind of keep Brown from not running. That's the one thing I asked. Don't let Brown run. Yeah. Don't let Brown get started. That's what they did. Gilmore did a great job. But the stutter go, we've kind of seen a little bit of the stutter go has been a problem when Bland, he kind of reads you, he settles. Now you're going to run with him again. Those are the things. It was a pretty pass, right where it needed to be. But you have got to these games come down to stopping these huge plays. And the Eagles, despite all their numbers being just pedestrian for what they normally do, you still allowed big plays, and that right there hurt you.
Something. Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
I was just gonna say something that I did notice. Like, those big play happens. I feel like the Cowboys secondary just need to play a tougher game. Something that I noticed the Eagles defense do, regardless, like on a big play, you catch the ball, the guy who comes, whoever, I didn't even notice who it was at the time, but comes running, gets there, hits you so hard that you drop the ball. So it's like one of those things, like if those catches happen, and more often than not, they're right there with the guy, you need to play harder and like maybe create some kind of fumble, turnover, whatever. But
they're usually pretty good. Dallas will win when they turn people over.
Yeah,
they didn't turn the
which
team
is
over.
and
by the way, they did have opportunities. They did actually turn. They actually created the fumble.
No question.
They just didn't recover it.
No question.
And I'll tell you this: it seemed like to me, and this is just an anecdotal thing. I don't know what the numbers say, but it seemed like to me over the last really 2 years, you had more plays being made by Donovan Wilson and by Jaron Kearse, those kinds of plays, those game-changing kind of plays that we haven't really seen from those two players, particularly this season.
Right.
And again, I don't know if the numbers bear out like that. It just seems anecdotally. Last year, we come out of a game, and inevitably, you were talking about one of the two of them.
Yeah.
Right.
They made
Impact
some play.
plays.
Yeah, they made some play that made a huge difference in the game, and it doesn't seem like that's happening as much this year. You guys feeling the same thing?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Their name's not being called as often. As far as the safety trio is concerned, Hooker, on the other hand, you've heard his name called several times over the course of this season, and again on Sunday with the forced fumble. But I mean, the Eagles made their explosive plays when they needed to make them, but the Cowboys defense also had opportunities at explosive plays. Sam Williams, sack, forced fumble, it bounces right back into Jalen Hurts' hands. Malik Hooker, forced fumble, it falls right back under the Eagle. So, I mean, the defense, to me, they played well. Could they have played better? Absolutely. The Eagles scored 28 points. So, they could have scored. They could have played better, but
they're struggling at nickel corner right now.
Right.
And that's the whole thing when it goes back to Diggs.
Right.
If you have Bland playing nickel corner, then maybe you don't have a sail route to Dallas Goedert for for a first down on 3rd and 8 or whatever it was. Maybe you're in these situations where you're playing with guys and hey, you got to play with who you have. And I've seen Jordan Lewis make plenty of plays, but they're struggling right there at that spot. I feel like, though, that to me, wherever they match up, they just got to stop. There's been key down and distance situations where they just haven't been able to get off the field. They got off the field better in the second half. Yeah. And I think a lot of it had to do with how banged up Jalen Hurts was in that game. And they needed to take better advantage of that. They couldn't get enough pressure when he was limping around. But what did Philadelphia do? They went to the running game. Dallas kind of shut the running game down in the second half on them. Didn't allow the big plays and stuff like that. So, it's unfortunate, but that's the one thing that kills this defense. Yes, they had opportunities to get turnovers. No, they didn't get them. And yes, they still give up big plays.
All right, that's a wrap. We'll be back tomorrow. We're going to do a little big picture look at this team and maybe even take a couple topics from today that we didn't get to, like the Cowboys running game, and talk a little bit more about that. We'll do that tomorrow. Till then, for Patrick Walker, Brian Broaddus, and Amber Garcia, I'm Derek Eagleton. This has been The Break, live on DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!